Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name's Laura, aka the Bookish Hermit, and today we're going to be doing some building in Minecraft. As you can see, I've added a little bit of decoration to our little village, some trees and a little pond there. And now I'm going to try and add like a giant aquarium. We're also going to be talking about some true crime. The case that I've chosen is the Teena case. It's also known as the Humboldt murders. The reason I've chosen this case is because for some reason it's always interested me. I saw the film Boys Don't Cry starring Hilary Swank when I was about 18, 19. And I just thought it was a really interesting film. Really enjoyed it, and I wanted to find out a little bit more about the case and the people involved, and it's just fascinated me since then. The case inspired not only the film that I've just mentioned, but also a documentary which is currently available on Amazon Prime. There's also a book as well which details quite a lot about the case, which is really interesting. So, on a cold New Year's Eve in 1993, in the small town of Humboldt, Nebraska, a tragedy unfolded that would shine a stark light on the violence faced by the transgender community. This is the chilling true story of Teena, a young transgender man whose life ended far too soon, murdered by those he once considered his friends. Brandon, originally named Teena Brandon, was born on December the 12th, 1972, into a world that really wasn't ready to accept him. He was raised by his young widowed mother, Joanne. His father had died in a car accident just 8 months before he was born. For a short time, Brandon and his older sister Tammy lived with their grandmother in Lincoln before being reunited with their mother when Brandon was 3 and Tammy was 6. The family lived in northwest Lincoln. Joanne supported them with disability checks and a job in a woman's retail store. From an early age, Brandon struggled with his gender identity. Remember, this is a time when such issues weren't discussed openly. In order to try and make himself feel a little more comfortable in his own skin, he cut his hair short and identified as a boy. However, Joanne, his mother, struggled to accept Brandon's male identity and continued to refer to him as her daughter. Friends later described Brandon as a really sweet and respectable person. However, he did encounter his fair share of legal troubles. He would use stolen checks and credit cards to buy flowers, cuddly toys, and other gifts for the women that he dated. During traffic stops, he would often try to avoid problems by using a fake name in order to get out of trouble. It's also worth mentioning here that Brandon and Tammy went through some sexual abuse at the hands of their uncle for several years, and Brandon began receiving counselling for this in 1991. As Brandon grew older, his desire to present as male just kept getting stronger and stronger, and in an era where understanding of gender identity was almost non-existent, Brandon found himself struggling with acceptance from society, but most painfully from his family. In the middle of 1991, Brandon found himself falling in love for the first time. The girl who stole his heart was named Heather. She knew Brandon as Billy Brinson. Their relationship quickly became serious, and Brandon was excited about this new chapter in his life. He'd never experienced such strong feelings for someone before, and he wanted to build a future with Heather. And to do that, he knew that he needed to earn some money. Now, Heather was underage at this time. I think that's definitely worth mentioning here. Shortly after the two of them started dating, Brandon got a job as a gas station attendant. The job was obviously a crucial step for him, as he wanted to save up enough money to buy a trailer home where himself and Heather could live together. He envisioned a cosy, comfortable place where they could spend time together, free from any outside pressures. He was motivated and dedicated to this goal, working hard at the gas station while dreaming of their future. However, not everyone in Brandon's life was supportive of his relationship. His mother didn't approve and had her own concerns and beliefs about what was best for her child. In her desire to protect him, she convinced her daughter Tammy, along with a couple of other people, to keep a close eye on Brandon and Heather. Tammy, who is Brandon's sister, was asked to follow them around and find out what was really going on in their relationship. Their mother wanted to know if the bond between Brandon and Heather was like a genuine close friendship or if it was more physical. As I said, Heather was underage at this time, so that's a big concern. It's been said that Joanne would bombard the couple with phone calls, trying to get in touch with Heather to warn her of what she had got herself into, to warn her that Brandon Billy was actually her female daughter, Teena. It's also been said that during their relationship, Brandon had a heartfelt conversation with Heather. He disclosed that he was born a hermaphrodite, raised a female, but now identified as male. He claimed that he'd undergone surgery, which of course was not true. Brandon certainly couldn't afford the procedures needed to physically transition. Nevertheless, Heather herself was satisfied that he was a man simply because of the way he carried himself. He had all the mannerisms of a man. Fast forward to the winter of 1993, Brandon moved to Falls City, Nebraska, hoping to find acceptance. At this time, Brandon identified fully as a male. In Falls City, he moved in with Lisa Lambert, who happened to be a friend of a friend. He also met a number of other people, two of them being John Lotter and Tom Nisson, two ex-convicts with a history of violence. The three of them became friends while partying around Falls City and other places in Richardson County. Then there was his new love interest, Lana Tisdall, who he began dating. Everything seemed to be going well until Brandon was arrested for forging checks and placed in the female section of a jail. Lana stepped in to help using bail money she had somehow got from her father. Since she was underage at the time, she asked Tom Nisson to post Brandon's bond and get him out. When Lana found out Brandon was in the female section, Brandon pretty much had no choice but to come clean about his struggle with his sexual identity. This revelation created some tension. Multiple sources suggest that Lana didn't handle this news very well. While both the documentary and the film, Boys Don't Cry, portray her as Brandon's strongest supporter at this time. Regardless of which account is accurate, Brandon's release in December 1993 marked the beginning of a nightmare for him. To make matters even worse, Brandon's arrest was reported in the local newspaper under his birth name, Teena R. Brandon, which revealed to his acquaintances that he was born female. You can only imagine the reactions of Nissa and Lotta when they came across this news. These two were known for their sociopathic tendencies and love of violence. Their drinking, their drug taking, they weren't very nice people by all accounts. And they were about to impact Brandon's life in ways that would change all of their futures. At a Christmas Eve party, Nissan and Lotta made Brandon take off his pants to show Lana that Brandon had a vagina. It's said that Lana only looked when she was forced to and didn't say anything. Lotta and Nissan later attacked Brandon and forced him into a car. They drove him to a location near a meat packing plant in Richardson County where they assaulted and raped him. Afterwards, they returned to Nissan's home where they ordered Brandon to take a shower. He managed to escape through the bathroom window and ran to Lana's house. She encouraged him to file a police report about what had happened. Brandon first went to the emergency room where a rape kit was collected but was later, apparently it went missing. Sheriff Charles B. Lux questioned Brandon about the rape incident but seemed overly focused on her transgender status rather than what actually happened. This made Brandon feel very uncomfortable. He felt that the sheriff was just being rude and asking unnecessary questions, and this caused him to sort of clam up really and not fully get his side of the story across. Nissan and Lotta were brought in for questioning, but despite having enough evidence, the sheriff failed to arrest them or charge them. Had he done his job properly, he could have potentially saved a lot of lives. Brandon thought at this point that he was safe. He'd reported the rape and his attackers had been taken in for questioning. However, the worst was still to come. In the early hours of the new year, reportedly around 1 a.m, John Lotta and Thomas Nissan made their way to Lisa Lambert's house where Brandon was recovering from his ordeal. They made their way through the house and into the back bedroom where Lisa was dialing a number on the phone. She saw a gun being pointed at her. One man took the phone calmly from her and placed it back on the receiver. The two then demanded to know where Brandon was. When Lisa refused to tell them, the chaos that broke out was unimaginable. Brandon was discovered hiding beneath a blanket at the foot of the bed. Fleeing the nightmare was not an option at this point. John Lotta grabbed Brandon, pulled him up and threw him onto the bed next to Lisa. Lisa's young child, Teena, was also in the room at this time in his crib, screaming his head off. Tom Nissan attempted to calm the child by picking him up. 2 shots were fired and Brandon went down. John then followed up this attack by stabbing Brandon to make sure he was dead. His buddy Tom had shamelessly pointed out that he saw Brandon twitching. Lisa was then shot. This was said to be a graze wound that she could have lived through. The bullet just skimmed her skin. Tom then put the baby back into the crib while John was apparently messing around with the sliding mechanism on the gun. It was jammed. The men asked Lisa if there was anybody else in the house. She informed them that in the other bedroom there was another man staying in the house. He was known as Philip Devine and he was dating Lana's sister at the time. John left the room to go and investigate, finding Philip and dragging him from the room, pleading for his life. John then returned to Lisa's room with Philip in tow and fired a shot at Lisa, hitting her in the right eye and killing her. Philip, terrified and screaming, begged Tom and John to listen to him. He was taken to the living room, forced to sit down, where John fired 2 shots, killing him as well. Afterwards, John returned to Lisa's room and attempted to shoot the 2 bodies on the bed, but the gun jammed again. Once it was cleared, he fired 2 or 3 more shots before he and Tom decided to leave. On their way out, they picked up some spent cartridge cases from the bullets. Tom drove, with John directing him an alternative route. They travelled along Morrill Road, crossed into Kansas City, and eventually made their way back to Falls City, arriving in the dead of night. As they reached the edge of town, they disposed of their evidence in the river, hoping that it would wash away. Unfortunately for them, the river was frozen and the package containing the gun, clips, gloves and a folding knife, which I believe had John's name kind of like engraved on it, that just lay on the surface of the ice waiting to be discovered. Tom and John were arrested later that day and Tom soon turned on John. Tom Nissan accused John Lotta of murder. To get a lighter sentence, probably. Tom Nissan admitted that he did, in fact, help with the rape and the murder and testified against Lotta. He was convicted of 1 count of murder in the 1st degree and 2 counts of murder in the 2nd degree and sentenced to life in prison. He's currently serving 3 consecutive life sentences. Lotta denied Nissan's claims and his testimony was discredited. The jury found Lotta guilty of 3 counts of 1st-degree murder and sentenced him to death. Both men appealed their convictions. In September 2007, Nissan changed his story, claiming he was the only one who shot Brandon and that Lotta did not kill anyone. However, in 2009, the Nebraska Supreme Court rejected Lotta's appeal, stating that under Nissan's new account, both were still involved in the murder, making the identity of the shooter irrelevant. In August 2011, a 3-judge panel rejected another appeal from John Lotta, and again in October 2011. Another request from John Lotta for a rehearing by a panel or by the full court was also denied. Lotta then asked the US Supreme Court to review his case, but the court declined. First on March the 19th, 2012, and again on April the 23rd, 2012. Leaving Lotta's conviction in place. On January the 22nd, 2018, Lotta's third appeal to the US Supreme Court was also denied. I also have here the autopsy findings. Dr. Blaine Rothman performed all 3 autopsies. Philip Devine had 2 bullet wounds to the head and died of severe brain damage. Brandon had 2 gunshot wounds to the head, 1 to the eye and 1 to the jaw. There was a stab wound to the right chest level of the 10th rib that penetrated the liver. Death was caused by either of the head wounds as a result of hemorrhage and brain disruption. Lisa Lambert had 2 gunshot wounds to the head and 1 superficial graze-type entrance and exit wound over her right anterior chest. Except for the superficial chest wound, either of the head wounds would have been fatal. Brandon's life and death ignited change. His story is one of resilience and heartbreak, shedding light on the intolerance faced by the transgender community. It was a case that captured national attention and inspired fearless advocacy for hate crime legislation, forever changing how society views violence against LGBTQ individuals. Though his life was cut short, Brandon Teena's spirit lives on, inspiring generations to fight for acceptance, love, and the right to live authentically. That's all I've got for this case, guys. I really hope that you enjoyed that. I definitely love to do more videos like this. I've really enjoyed doing all the researching and everything. Please let me know what you think in the comments. Say hello, subscribe, and check out my other social media if you get a moment. Now I'm going to speed this Minecraft build up a little bit. It does go a little bit wrong, but it actually turns out looking pretty good. This will be a build that will be continued, though, in another video, so stay tuned for that. And I hope you all have a really good day. Talk to you soon.
Shutting down, everyone's gathered round, heading to the fairgrounds to see us a show. Got an AM country station get you high and the sun's going down. Sparklers lighting up every cornfield all around. Yeah, we stand and salute all those who served, who paid that price once who gave their life. It's a fireworks stand on the